We think about our clothes all the time, right? Style, comfort, what fits the occasion. But what if clothing could be something more? What if it could be a powerful symbol of your devotion, a moral guide, and even the foundation of a community? Well, today we're going to explore how in Islam, that's exactly what it is. So let's just start with a simple question. Think about it for a second. What do your clothes say about you? For most of us, it's how we show off our personality, our mood, our identity, all without saying a single word. And for millions of Muslims all over the world, that expression is really centered on this one idea, that what you wear can be a testament to a life of purpose. It's this very conscious choice to make your outside match your inside. But to really get that, we have to dig into the philosophy behind it all. And that takes us right here, to the heart of it all. Before we even touch on any specific rules or guidelines, we've got to explore the why, the core philosophy of modesty itself. It really all starts with the meaning of the word Islam itself, which translates to submission to the will of God. Now, this isn't just about things like prayer or fasting. It's a much bigger idea that touches every single part of a believer's life. So from this point of view, clothing isn't just a cultural habit. It's actually an act of worship, a way of showing your commitment. At the very center of this philosophy is this one really powerful concept, haya. We often translate it as modesty, but honestly, that word doesn't quite do it justice. A better way to think about it is like an inner compass, this deep sense of humility and reserve that guides everything a person thinks, says, and does. And the key thing to get here is that haya starts on the inside. It's a whole approach to life. This idea is just so beautifully summed up in this teaching from the Prophet Muhammad. When he frames modesty, or haya, as the innate character of the faith, well, it's not just some optional rule anymore, is it? It becomes the very essence of what it means to live a life of dignity and submission. Okay, so if haya is the internal philosophy, how does that actually get translated into an external practice? How does this inner compass become, well, a blueprint for dignity in the real world? This is where we get into the practical side of things. This brings us to a really central concept called awrah. It's an Arabic term, and it specifically refers to the parts of the body that are meant to be covered out of a sense of modesty. This basically provides the fundamental blueprint for how to apply that inner principle of haya to your clothing. So what does this blueprint actually look like in practice? Well, the guidelines for covering the awrah, which apply after puberty, are laid out for both men and women. For men, it's the area from the navel down to the knees, and for women, it's the entire body, with the exception of the hands and the face. But just covering those areas is only the starting point. There are a few other key principles that make sure the true spirit of modesty is really being met. The first couple are all about concealment. Your clothes should be loose enough that they hide the shape of the body and thick enough so they're not see-through. The other principles are more about your conduct, both socially and spiritually. So the overall look should be dignified, you should avoid extravagance, and you shouldn't imitate clothing that's specific to the opposite gender. It's really a whole package. That principle of thickness is captured in this incredibly powerful warning from Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. She talked about seeing women who were dressed yet naked. Wow. It's such a vivid way to make the point that just putting on fabric doesn't mean anything if it still reveals what it's supposed to conceal. So, we've seen the internal philosophy and the external practice. But why does any of this matter on a bigger scale? Let's zoom out a little and see how these very personal choices are actually meant to build a life with purpose, one that impacts the whole community. A huge goal here is to help build a society that's founded on dignity and respect. The idea is that when you have these shared norms, it helps uphold moral boundaries. It encourages people to interact based on their character and their intellect, not just their appearance. And that, in turn, is meant to create a more cohesive and spiritually pure community. And this brings us right back to that principle of avoiding extravagance. This teaching here shows that modesty in what you wear isn't some isolated rule. It's part of a much bigger, more holistic, ethical way of life. It connects what you put on your body to a broader approach to everything, one that really values humility over arrogance and being mindful over being excessive. So in the end, the philosophy behind Islamic clothing is this really powerful example of how what we wear can be chosen not just for style, but for substance. And for all of us, it's a pretty compelling reminder that our clothing doesn't just have to be a statement of fashion, it can absolutely be a statement of purpose.